Jay, what's happening, bud? Tiki and Tierney, how are you today?
What's going on, guy?
All good in the hood. I got a question for you, just a broad snapshot here from last night's game. I wasn't sure, although I did get my answer, but I'm curious what yours is. Going in, I say, if the Pats win, will it be more of a positive reflection on them or a negative reflection on the Texans? And I thought, depending upon the game, the way it played out, you couldn't really answer it until you saw the game. But for me, I think it was a negative reflection on the Texans. You cannot get a donut if you're thought to be a heavyweight in the AFC. You got to be kidding me, Jay.
This was always going to be a referendum on Houston. I mean, I get the platitudes for Belichick and McDaniels, but, like, what have you been watching the last decade? You know what I mean? Like, they won 4 Super Bowls. They've been to 6. Like, beating a mediocre AFC South team at home in a short week, although the degree of difficulty is incredibly ratcheted up given the quarterback situation, like, look what they just did to Arizona 2 weeks ago when nobody knew who Garoppolo was. So this was always going to be about the Texans to me. Could the pupil beat the master? Is Houston just a team that does well within its division, has a couple of nice shiny parts, and then craps the bed in January? Looked like the same thing to me. I mean, that's why I didn't really know who to pick in that division because it doesn't matter. The AFC South is still the AFC South. Someone will beat up on the other teams more than the other teams beat up on the other teams within the confines of that sort of relegation zone of the NFL. And then they'll get whacked in the first round of the playoffs.
But
how
do you explain then all the money that they've spent on Brock Osweiler?
I can't.
Yeah,
I didn't like the move. I mean,
there you go.
I didn't like it.
There's your answer. You can't. It doesn't make sense.
I mean, it's desperation. And look, I'm not saying he's going to be awful, but let's just look at the end of the year. And let's see if he's got a better completion percentage than Brian Hoyer had there last year without the same weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if he's got a better TD to INT ratio. And let's see if he had a better quarterback rating. Let's just see.
Yeah, no.
For 3 times the salary per year, for $40 million guaranteed. Let's see.
Yeah, no. And here's the thing, and I think you, just like me, just like BT or anyone who's can't predict it with any certainty whether it's going to be better or worse than last year. Let's stick in the AFC East for a second. We saw up in Buffalo, I don't know if it was Rex or if it was the front office, fires Greg Roman, and they go with Anthony Lynn. Now, a lot of the narrative coming out of there was that it was a players thing. The players weren't happy with the direction of this offense. They need to get the ball more to Sammy Watkins and Shady McCoy. What precipitated this change, and what do we think is going to happen after the change?
Well, I mean, what I've reported staunchly through this is that this process began. I reported on the issues between the front office and Greg Roman by the middle of last season. And even though they were on their way to leading the league in rushing and hanging in there despite a defense that was miserable, there was extreme tension because the GM, Doug Whaley, has hitched his wagon to Tyrod Taylor and Sammy Watkins. I mean, just go back and look at what he gave up for Sammy Watkins and what other wide receivers were in that draft.
Yeah, Odell.
So for one, you can go down the line.
Yep,
Benjamin.
And Watkins was kind of banged up and kind of hurt when they drafted him, and they've had a history of drafting hurt players, and then they don't play, and then the GM goes to the owner and says, well, we got the players. They just don't know how to use them, or they're always getting hurt. What are we going to do? So that goes on over the course of that period of time, and then you have a start like this, and you're not going to fire the defensive coordinator because you might as well just fire the owner. I mean, the coach then, right? You're not going to convince him to fire his brother. So, yeah, Greg Roman, okay, sure. You've wanted him out of here for a year, so I'll cast him aside. And now you can just read the comments this week. I mean, if you want verification or whatever reporting, just look at all we got to run the offense through Watkins. Got to find a way to get the ball to Watkins, which is great if he didn't have screws in his foot.
Yeah.
If he could practice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying Greg Roman's the most creative guy in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at the hand he's dealt. Sammy Watkins is a guy who, for a 4-week period, can look as good as any receiver in the league. Then the 5th week, he's missing a little bit of practice. The 6th week, he's not playing in that game. The 7th week, he's not playing in that game. The 8th week, he practices once but not twice, but you play him anyway. You practices on Wednesday but not Thursday, but you play him anyway because you got nothing else. I mean, look at the rest of that receiving core, right? I mean, Hogan's gone. I mean, who else? Lee's a speed guy. Maybe he catches the ball. He probably does it. I mean, Goodwin. I mean, what?
No, nothing.
Like,
they have
what?
nothing.
I mean, you know what I mean? So, you can fire all the Greg Romans you want. Your roster's no good.
Jason La Canfora with us here on Tiki and Tierney. So, Jay, we put a poll up on our Twitter account, and maybe you have a different answer. Obviously, pressure, even though it's early, is beginning to amplify for some in a few spots here. One is the Jaguars, whether it's the quarterback or the coach or whatever. They better win a game soon. Obviously, Rodgers is a Hall of Famer, but there's been a lot of criticism with Rodgers. He has not played particularly well. Kirk Cousins, the exact opposite of Rodgers, trying to prove really who he is. What's the most important storyline this weekend for you?
I don't know if there necessarily is one. You know what I mean? That there's one. I mean, this being week 3. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, for being this early in the year, in a situation where the culture's changed, like it's not uncommon to get guys fired in October, right? Dennis Allen comes back from London a couple years ago, and they tell him, yeah, you don't need to show up at the facility tomorrow. Joe Philbin comes back from London in early October last year, and yeah, you're gone. We're gonna go with Dan Campbell. So, you know, I think these owners have become increasingly willing to just say, you know, bleep it, and I'm going to just change course now, which is going to do nothing but doom the rest of your season.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, and that never used to happen until occasionally, you know, week 14. Now it's happening, you know, in week 4 and 5. So, yeah, and I'm not saying these guys are all, or even any of them will be fired this season, but the Rex Bryants, the Gus Bradleys, the John Foxes, some of these guys, it could get late real early if they don't start putting something on film that gives you a reason to believe that there are better things ahead in the short, you know, in the short term or the long term. So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned Jacksonville. I mean, Beachum, their left tackle, right, had a very scary moment last weekend. Had that concussion, hospitalized. I can't imagine he's going to play. Brandon Linder, great young center. He's missed practice all week. I don't know if he's going to play. Like, if they mess around and lose to Baltimore at home, now they go to London in week 4 and face the Colts. You know what I mean? If those are 2 0-3 teams going into that, whoever loses that game, your season's over. Like, it's over. You're not getting out of that hole. The best teams don't get out of that hole.
Yeah.
You know, even in the AFC South, it's over. And then owners start looking around, and they won't say anything publicly, but privately, they're calling other people in the league. They're trying to see who's out there that they could bring in as a consultant to get a jump on the other teams, to start, you know, back channeling with the best head coaching prospects, and there you go. You're right back where you were.
Jason, what's the league's level of concern with what's happening down in Charlotte? I ask because my brother's doing this game. He doesn't really know what's going on. Hasn't been fully briefed as he heads down, I think, later this morning. But you hear from the players. Like Greg Olson pulled his kids out of school. They're talking about the tailgate that happens in the uptown down there in downtown. You know, they're probably not going to send the family. What's the level of concern from the league given what's going on based on the social issues down there?
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly watching it closely. NFL security has a close eye on it. They're in communication with both the teams and also law enforcement in that community. As of now, the league is pretty staunchly saying, you know, we feel like that situation is going to be safe enough to play that game. No one can predict exactly what's going to happen, and obviously, you're talking about 70,000 people gathering somewhere. You're going to have a lot of attention and a lot of cameras there. But you could also note that things have been more peaceful and seemingly more restrained the last couple of nights. So I suspect, guys, that they play that game. Will they have contingencies in place if they have to make a last-minute decision? And by last minute, I would say by Friday night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Saturday morning before people start boarding planes. I'm sure that there's work going on in that regard as well, but I don't know that it's going to get to that point.
We're talking to Usual La Canfora here on Tiki and Tierney. Jason, part of the NFL Today, is going to stop by, as always, on Tops on Sunday, so I'll see Jason there. And, of course, you read them all week on CBSSports.com. Jason, is there a team now that you think, and, again, it's obviously an early read. This could change, that you just think is a lot better than their record indicates, than the stats indicate, than the perception would indicate, that within the next 2 or 3 weeks we look back and we say, man, how did we think this team was ever in the trouble that we kind of positioned them to be? Anybody?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be dire in Seattle, and I think that either, you know, from within now, just by guys getting healthier, and by guys I mean primarily Russell Wilson, or if by need be making a bold move before the deadline. I think it's way too early to be talking about a team that good and a team that really is giving up nothing defensively.
Jay, can I hop in for a second? Jay, let me challenge you on that. I really disagree. They don't take the ball away like they used to. It's not even, and the numbers bear that out. And Russell Wilson's going to get sacked 50 times this year, and they don't run the ball the way they used to. This thought that Seattle is just seamlessly transitioning from year to year, they're not the same team, and it's not even close, Jay.
I'm not saying they're going to go 14-2. I'm saying they're going to be competing.
I don't know if they're going to go 10-6.
They're going to go 10-6.
I don't know about that.
Graham start showing up in that offense as well. I think people easily discredit them because they've sort of done it a different ways, and now it doesn't look exactly like it did with Marshawn Lynch, and it takes some time to sort this out. I mean, you're basically going with 5 different offensive linemen, so the idea that it was going to be super smooth from the giddy up, I don't have the level of concern I have about them with some other teams. And I guess a lot of people are probably off Tampa's bandwagon because they got destroyed, walking into a buzzsaw there with the Cardinals. Really that was a hornet's nest, and Bruce Arians had been in his team's backside pretty good, since even before that Patriots game about, do you think you've actually won something here? Like you care about these predictions that you're going to win the Super Bowl? Like, let's win, let's get there first. So I think Tampa over the stretch of 16 games will be better than more teams than not that they play.
Good call.
I'm not going to abandon them. Yeah, they're going to be without Doug Martin for a few weeks. Go hit some bumps in the road. I think they'll be better for it come, November and December.
So to Jason La Canfora here on Tiki and Tierney, CBS Sports Radio. Jason, CBS Sports NFL Insider.
Jason, one of the stories that's floating around, narrative, question, whatever, however you want to position it, is what's wrong with Aaron Rodgers? And you read all the speculation. Is he hurt? Is the talent just not that good? Is it the play calling? What is actually going on? What can we guess is going on with Aaron Rodgers? Even though, he's playing well, right? It's not that, but it seems like something is missing from the Aaron Rodgers lore that we wanted to create or that we've been creating for the last decade.
He kind of created it for himself. I mean, you could go back through like a 5 to 7 year stretch there. We're inside the red zone. It was like he's playing a different sport than everybody else. And that's not quite there anymore. And I think part of that had to do with losing Jordy, who does so much dirty work for him around the goal line and in those little, 3rd and goal from the 4 type situations, just getting open, whatever. I think it's a combination of things. The offensive line, we're talking about how much Russell Wilson's getting hit. The offensive line in Green Bay is doing no one any favors. The play calling and Mike McCarthy, it doesn't seem like he's in sync with Rodgers, that they both want the same thing at the same time. It looks like a collection of plays. It looks like almost, we've got 3 or 4 of these that we can go to in an emergency.
Yeah.
We don't get there the way we used to. We used to get there through a script and through scheming and through setting them up with the feign and the okie doke now, right, to then deliver, in the third quarter, we're going to run that same formation, do something totally different out of it, and it's going to be an easy 7.
Yeah,
That's not there anymore.
Yeah, so it's like a playbook as opposed to a game plan.
Yeah, it's not a symphony. You know what I mean? It's a collection of like musical notes, and if they hit the right note at the right time, it'll sound really beautiful. But then it's like, where do we go from here? It's not part of this larger scheme. And Eddie Lacy, in the run game isn't quite. It's a lot of different things there. And the thing that personnel people talk about the most is just the roster's not as good, guys. Like, it's not. Clay Matthews isn't what he was 3-4 years ago. Peppers isn't what he was 3-4 years ago. The offensive line, they're all right. They're all okay. But that Ted Thompson was that guys, 42 to 53 who could start for other teams. I don't know that that's the case anymore.
Don't disagree. Jay, we're up against it. Outstanding job as always. And I told Jason off the air on Sunday, we really appreciate and obviously Friday's a very busy day for him, but just to reiterate that, man, good work as always, Jay. Very, very nice.